2 years into the past, a young man named Harry is standing before a chamber where a mysterious creature is enclosed. Soon he is joined by Norman Osborn, who tells him that everything is ready. Before they initiate the process they have agreed on, Harry asks Norman for a favor. If this does not work, Norman should take him out. Norman reassures Harry that he is not going to lose him and puts his hand on his shoulder. Right then, a mysterious creature emerges from his hand and wraps itself around Harry. Soon, Harry is placed in the chamber and he is merged with the creature inside. In the present day, Peter Parker enters a classroom because he is the school's new physics teacher. As soon as he starts the class, a boy named Miles asks to go to the bathroom. While a storm rages outside, Miles comes back and tells Peter that he needs his help. The classroom bursts into laughter and Peter asks Miles if he can handle it himself. Miles insists on demanding Peter's help, so the teacher follows him to the hallway. Miles tells him that there is something he needs to see, and the two of them are revealed to be Spiderman, using their powers to get to the roof of the building. Up there, Peter exclaims that he does not want to get fired from his job, but Miles shows him that somebody is causing mayhem in the city. Judging by the huge sand they see forming, Peter assumes it must be Sandman. The two of them start using their webs to jump around from building to building, while they also have MJ on their intercoms. Eventually, they are able to reach Sandman, and Peter tries to calm him down so he can de-escalate the situation. However, his words don't have an impact, and Sandman attacks him, sending him into a building. After saving several people, Peter has to fight with some little Sandmen that the original Sandman can create. Then, the giant Sandman comes after Peter and pins him down. The real Sandman, Marco, makes an appearance and tells Peter to leave him alone. He claims he's just trying to live a normal life, but Peter tells him this is not the way to do it. On the other hand, Sandman believes that there is nothing else a guy like him can do. Peter notices that there is a fractured tube above Marco's head and uses his web to break it because he knows that Sandman's weakness is water. Now that he is free, Peter uses electricity to daze Sandman, but the giant is refusing to go down. Peter and Miles suggest they need to get their hands on a large quantity of water, but that is not going to be as easy as it sounds. After fighting against the giant shape of the Sandman around the city, Peter manages to release a crate full of water on him while Sandman is trying to eat him. Sandman is momentarily defeated, but he makes his way to the beach, where he can use more sand to regain his powers. Marco creates a huge sandstorm, and the two Spider-Men know that they have to enter that storm if they want to stop him. They do just that, and fly around Sandman until they find themselves at the perfect spot. Right then, Peter uses a secret weapon he has equipped on his suit, which is a bunch of mechanical spider legs, in order to hit Sandman with lots of electric power. The attack seems to be good enough, and Sandman is defeated. Marco is contained in a special cage that limits his powers. Peter and Miles approach him, and being the good guys they are, they tell him that they will help him out if he needs their assistance. However, Marco is a bit bitter towards them and hints to them that they are the ones who are going to need help when their enemies come for them. 6 months prior to this incident, a man under the codename of Great Hunter has brought another strong guy into the forest. The strong man wanders through the forest looking for his opponents. But the Great Hunter, whose name is Kraven, tricks him and appears behind him. Kraven easily defeats the man, to the degree where he feels disappointed. When his people appear behind him, he scolds them for bringing an opponent who is not equal to him. Upon hearing that, one of his assistants tells them that maybe they should try to visit a new battling ground, showing him Peter's city and all the paranormal enemies they can find there. Kraven is very happy to see that, and prompts everybody to get ready for the Great Hunt. Back in the present, Peter and Miles are helping the police and fire department save as many people as possible after the mess Sandman created. Some gangs seize this opportunity to try and steal weapons or money, but Peter takes care of them. Soon, Peter stumbles on a crystal, and a few mini Sandman spawn out of nowhere. While he fights, MJ tells him that this is a sand crystal, and it contains a part of Marco's brain complex. After dealing with the minions, Peter breaks the crystal and takes an inner part of it with him. After the two are done, the two Spider-Men return to school, but the principal has been waiting on Peter. She hands him his backpack and announces that he is fired. Peter tries to make up some convincing excuses, but the principal will not change her mind anytime soon. Later, Peter meets with MJ and she immediately understands that something is going on with him. Peter reveals that he got fired today, but MJ tells him not to take it seriously because she might be joining him soon. Things are not going quite as well as she would like in her professional life as well. When they enter the house, MJ tells him that he could sell the house to make some money, but Peter does not want to do that because this house means a lot to him. While they decide to clean up the place, Peter walks to his bedroom. As soon as he enters, he recalls a certain memory. He was listening to a guy named Jameson calling Spider-Man an attention seeker rather than a hero. And that made him so angry that he punched a hole in the wall. His Aunt May entered his room and tried to support him with some kind words, speaking about the importance of being balanced. Then, she grabbed a pen and used the hole in the wall to create a drawing. Peter joined her back then, and we see in the present day that the hole is still there as a drawing. Peter thinks to himself that his aunt was right back then. If he takes on too much, he won't be able to deal with it. When he walks downstairs, MJ tells him that she has to go and do some research because there are new inmates being transferred and she wants to check on them. As soon as she walks outside, MJ is heard screaming and Peter runs after her. When he steps out, he realizes that MJ is excited to see their old friend Harry. After they hug him, Harry tells him that he returned from Europe and that his illness is falling back. MJ is very happy for him, but can't stay longer with the boys, so she tells Harry they should get in touch soon. After MJ leaves, Harry asks Peter if he is ready for a ride. He opens his car's trunk and gets 2 bicycles out. Peter believes this is his old bike, but Harry tells him it's just a close match, since he bought this one from the internet. As he starts riding, Peter asks why Harry never told him about his sickness. Harry replies that he was not certain if he was going to make it, and reveals that his therapy was quite difficult to put up with. He was floating in a tank with a healing agent, and he was having nightmares all the time. Harry takes them back to their old high school, and Peter wonders what they are doing in that place, since they both hated high school. Harry reminds him of an old story when the two of them had to sneak into the building from the back door in order to find some notes about one of their projects. Harry had been bullied by some guys and they stole his notes, but they had to retrieve them because they were going to present their project the next morning. As they enter the high school from the back door, we are taken back into the past to see how they were trying to retrieve their notes while trying to avoid the security guard. When they did, the two of them ran out to the stadium. At that exact point, Norman Osborn, Harry's father, landed on a helicopter. Norman wanted to have a talk with his son because he had to announce to him that his mother had died. Back in the present, Harry and Peter are sitting in that same stadium. Harry lets Peter know that he has built a lab where he will try to discover therapies for various diseases that are hard to fight against. The thing is, he wants Peter with him. Peter is reluctant about that, but Harry asks him to at least go to the lab and take a look around. Then he can decide if he's interested or not. In the meantime, Kraven and his army are arriving in the city. Kraven is informed by his men that the arena is ready, but Sandman was able to evade them. Recapturing him is not an option. Kraven is disappointed at that, but also comments that maybe Sandman was not meant to be his match. He orders his army to move on with their plans, but warns them not to fail again. Elsewhere, Miles is trying to fill out an application for a college admission, but his brain is mashed up and he can't come up with anything good for his personal statement. Thankfully for him, Peter calls him and tells him he needs his help. Miles is very happy to hear that, and immediately puts the computer aside. After wearing his suit, he goes to the fridge to grab his mask. As he does, his father's picture is revealed right behind it. Miles funnily talks with the picture of his deceased father, telling him that he is just taking a break. Before he leaves, his mother Rio walks in as well. She asks him where he is going, but instantly regrets it and says she prefers not to know. Rio tells Miles that she has been working late during these past weeks, but that is kind of a lie because in reality, she has been dating a guy. She proclaims that she would love to bring him to the house, and Miles tells her that he can give them some privacy. However, that is not what Rio wants. She wants her son to meet her date. Miles is okay with that and gives his mother a hug. A few moments later, Miles meets Peter near the docks, and they oversee the transfer of 2 prisoners. One of them is Scorpion, and the other is a guy named Lee, also known as Mr. Negative. The prisoners are taken to a ship and the ship departs. Everything seems to be going well, until Peter notices some puffs in the sky. He and Miles join the ship, and they are soon attacked by Kraven's fleet. While it is impossible for the human guards to fight against Kraven's army, Peter does his best to defend the ship and keep them from reaching the prisoners. Even though they seem to be winning, Kraven unleashes some hooks on the ship and starts dragging it towards the docks. Peter stays outside trying to unhook the ship, while Miles goes inside in order to save as many people as he can. After he saves some guards, Miles also saves Scorpion from drowning, but the latter attacks him. Scorpion manages to give Miles a scratch, but that is enough to inject him with his poison. Miles needs a moment to come to his senses and sees a cop lying on the floor. When he turns the man around, he sees his own father. However, that also helps him realize that what he's seeing is not real. Miles ends up in the water, but he manages to resurface. Then he ends up on top of Lee's cell. Apparently, the two of them have some history, but Miles does not want to let him die this way. Even though he decides to help him, Miles loses control of his suit and his electricity generation powers get out of control. Right then, Kraven's men burst through the ceiling and they kidnap Mr. Negative along with his cage. After beating up a couple of Kraven's men, Miles jumps on top of the ship and prevents Kraven's army from abducting Lee. Miles will have to get involved in a relentless fight against multiple opponents in order to keep them from taking Lee. At some point, Kraven decides to take action himself and he shoots at some propane tanks, causing a massive explosion that puts many people in danger. Miles is torn between keeping Lee on the ship and saving the civilians, so he notifies Peter that he needs his help. Peter comes quickly enough to save some civilians, while Lee manages to get out of his cage. He blames Miles that he would let him drown in his cage, but Miles replies that he has no idea what he has taken from him. Right then, Kraven appears in one of his flying vehicles and wraps a lasso around Lee to take him away. Miles uses his web to hold Lee back. He and Kraven are engaged in a pulling fight, where none of them seems to be willing to let each other win. Peter keeps a bunch of civilians from being fed into a propeller, but he asks Miles for help. Miles is caught between his own mental and physical battle, but Peter asks him for his help once more, so Miles now lets Lee go and takes his anger on the propeller, knocking it off. After they have saved everyone, Miles and Peter have a private talk on top of a bridge. Miles reveals that his powers went crazy and he has no idea how that happened. Peter tries to calm him down because he knows that Miles has lost too much. Of course, he can relate to that. Right next, Miles receives a call from his uncle Davis, who asks him if they can meet. Miles proceeds to meet with him, and it is apparent that the two of them have a proper relationship with each other. Davis understands that something is off with Miles, so he asks him what is going on. Miles reveals that he is troubled by Lee's escape. His uncle gives him some good advice and prompts him to work on his mentality. He should not allow Lee to get into his head because that is another form of prison. After their talk, Davis tells Miles that he needs to take a piece of tech off the street. He could do it himself, but he is on parole, so he does not want to risk it. Miles agrees to help him and gets on his way. Miles finds that tech real soon and calls Davis back. His uncle tells him that the tech contains some suit prototypes, so Miles could keep it and see if he can find anything useful. Nonetheless, he also warns him not to allow those prototypes to fall into the wrong hands. In the meantime, Peter visits Harry's lab, as they agreed a few days earlier. In the lobby, Peter notices a tree to which Harry has given his mother's name. In addition, there are some flowers in memory of his Aunt May. Harry joins Peter, and the latter comments that his lab is much bigger than he expected. Right then, Norman sees the two and approaches them. He states he is happy that Peter is going to join them, but Harry clarifies that he is going to give Peter a tour, and then he will decide if he will join them or not. In either case, Norman is happy to see the boys back together, and he lets them proceed with their tour. Harry starts showing Peter around, and then introduces him to Dr. Young, an entomologist who is working on a tiny drone that can spot and kill bee wolves, an insect that attacks bees. While they continue their tour, Dr. Connor interrupts them because he wants to check if everything is fine with Harry's health. When Harry introduces them, Peter mentions that he has met Connors before. Peter had been working for Dr. Octavius in the past, and Connors came to their lab once to ask Octavius's opinion on something. When Connors is done running his checks and he leaves the boys alone, Peter comments that Dr. Connors is actually the Lizard, and Harry tells him that his father believes in second chances. Harry has to make a phone call and allows Peter to look around, prompting him to meet him at his office when he is done. Peter takes a look around the building and then meets with Harry again because he wants to show him some last attractions around the place. Eventually, they end up in a big office where Harry starts talking about his mother. He exclaims that when he was in treatment, he frequently recalled his mother's words, who told him that the world is in danger and it is their responsibility to save it. Harry clarifies that he needs Peter on his side in order to make his mother and Aunt May proud. Peter tells him that there is only one minor problem. He will have to move his desk because he likes to face the wall when he works. The two of them hug because they will soon be working together. At that point, Peter receives a message from Miles and tells Harry that he's going to need some time to transition from his old job to his new one. Harry allows him to take as much time as he needs, and Peter leaves in order to find out what Miles wants. When Peter is free, he communicates with Miles, who talks to him about a possible location where the bad guys might be hiding. Peter goes to that location, but can't see anything out of the ordinary. However, that is until a passing driver throws a bottle of alcohol into the sea, and the bottle gets sucked into something like a warp. Spider-Man approaches and gradually touches his hand to a point where he suspects there is an invisible energy shield. His suspicions come true, and he finds himself on the other side of that invisible portal. He is immediately apprehended, and he has to fight against various hunters. In the end, he uses one of the enemy's mechanical birds and programs it to fly to its next destination. By following it, he sees a bunch of Kraven's men moving some stuff in a block. Right then, MJ communicates with him and tells him there is a shell company buying several buildings in various neighborhoods. Peter enters one of those secret bases, and he looks around for any clues that would help him understand what this guy Kraven is cooking. At some point, Peter finds a replica of Scorpion's suit and assumes that Kraven's hunters are looking for any weaknesses in the suit. Peter is spotted by some guards and their mechanical hunting animals, but he is able to defeat them moments before reaching a computer screen. Peter sees that they have been gathering information on a thief called Black Cat, apart from being interested in Scorpion and Lee. In the meantime, Kraven enters something like a garden or arena full of sand and approaches a cage that has been opened. After a few steps, he finds one of his guards lying dead in the sand. Then, Scorpion emerges from the sand behind him and attacks him. Kraven grabs Scorpion by his throat and holds him still, but the latter is still able to attack Kraven with his stinger. Despite this, Kraven is not hurt and cuts the edge of Scorpion's stinger before disposing him on the ground like he is a toy. Scorpion tries to attack once more, but Kraven is stronger and traps him on a wall. Kraven states he was expecting more from Scorpion because he has heard he was a ruthless killer. With that said, he just kills Scorpion and walks away. Back at Peter, he keeps staring at the computer and realizes that Kraven does not need the criminals in order to organize some kind of hunting with them, but rather uses them as prey for his hunts. Meanwhile, in Miles' bedroom, he is browsing several articles discussing that the terrorist named Martin Lee has escaped. His mother walks into the room and Miles lowers his computer screen while she tells him that it is almost time for her date to arrive. Miles smiles at that, but then he receives a message from Peter who instructs him to suit up immediately. Miles tells his mother that he has to go, but promises that he will be present at the next dinner with her date. When he leaves, his mother pulls up the computer screen and discovers what her son has been occupied with. Miles starts jumping and flying around town while Peter informs him that Black Cat is in danger. He tells Miles that she will not listen to him if he tries to warn her, so it is better if Miles is the one to talk to her. At that point, we also learn that Black Cat is Peter's ex-girlfriend. When Miles finds her, he realizes that her location is surrounded by hunters. Miles takes them all out one by one, but then something weird happens as he realizes that Black Cat, or Felicia, has stolen a wand that can wield magic. Felicia uses the wand to open a portal in space and escapes. Miles goes after her while MJ communicates with him, saying that he has to get the wand back because Felicia is going to use it to steal more art. However, Felicia is able to hear them and joins the chat. When Miles asks her how she was able to get into their frequency, she tells them that they are stupid enough to use their old frequency. Soon, the two of them are also joined by the hunters, who are after Felicia. After jumping from place to place, Felicia opens portals and enters one of the aircrafts that are after her. She beats the hunters up and then uses another portal in order to get out of the aircraft before it crashes into the ground. Miles comes near her and asks for her help to stop Kraven. Felicia tells him that Kraven is his job because he is Spider-Man and it is his responsibility to save the city. After Miles blames her for being selfish, Felicia states that her girlfriend is in France because she has gotten her in trouble with some bad people. She needs to go help her as soon as possible, so she cannot participate in battles that are not hers to fight. The problem is, she does not know how to use the wand in order to travel such long distances. Their chat is interrupted by Kraven's men, who are after Felicia, and they want to take her alive to their boss. She and Miles are able to defeat the bad guys, and then Miles decides to help Felicia. The two of them grab the wand at the same time and concentrate on thinking about the Eiffel Tower. The trick works, and a portal opens to France. Felicia leaves the wand to Miles and makes the crossing through the portal. Once the portal is closed, Miles jumps on a roof and asks the wand to show him Lee's location. But right then, the wand disappears from his hand and a letter appears in its place. The letter reads that the sender and the doctor have returned from their latest journey, and they need the wand back. Later, Miles decides to take some time off and catches up with his friend Genki at the fun fair. An illusionist is presenting something he calls Mysterium, the future of entertainment. Miles decides to try and enters the Mysterium. That place somehow transfers him to a manifestation of his subconscious mind, and Miles has to fight against Mr. Negative. Eventually, Miles exits the Mysterium, rolling like a barrel, and the illusionist apologizes to him for that poor experience. Next, Peter appears at the fun fair as well, with Harry and MJ. When Peter introduces them, Harry announces that he and Peter are starting a research foundation together, which makes Miles wonder if Peter will have spare time to tutor him. After Peter tells him that they will figure it out, Miles decides to leave because that Mysterium thing really messed with his mind. As he leaves, MJ advises Peter to check up with Miles tomorrow in order to make sure that he is okay. The three friends decide to try different games, one of them being kart racing. When they arrive at that specific section, they see an old villain whose name is Tombstone working as a mechanic. They are really surprised at him being friendly and helpful as he saves a kart racer, preventing an accident. Peter decides to avoid him and he takes MJ for a roller coaster ride. When they get a moment alone, MJ tells him that she got a promotion and she is going to be an editor in the newspaper she works for. They kiss under the fireworks, but they soon have to stop because several hunters have joined the fun fair. This time, they are looking for Tombstone. Peter has to help him out and he joins the battle. However, he is trapped in a net by the hunters and wastes precious time. When he sets himself free, he accidentally sends an enemy vehicle crashing into the roller coaster post, which causes it to start falling. Spider-Man ditches the battle and jumps on top of the roller coaster post, trying to keep people from two separate rides from dying. Nonetheless, the weight is too much for him, but thankfully, Harry appears behind him and helps him with it by using some weird assets coming out of his body. Eventually, they are able to save the people, and Spider-Man jumps back on top in order to relieve Harry from the weight he has been lifting. The two of them take a moment to talk, as none of them knew the secrets of the other. Spider-Man asks him about that thing that came out of him, and Harry replies that it was probably his treatment. Dr. Connors had told him that it is something like a self-learning exosuit. Harry is thrilled due to both of them having superpowers. But when he raises his hand to grab Peter's arm, the asset comes out and attacks Peter. Peter avoids that sneaky attack, and Harry apologizes for it, since he is not in a position to control it yet. Despite this, they agree to run some tests in the lab and see what they can come up with. That same night, Peter meets Harry at the lab, and he sees the ladder jumping from the second floor. However, his asset comes out of his body and holds him from crashing into the ground. When the two of them take a walk inside the office, Harry complains to Peter for telling MJ that he is Spider-Man, but not telling him. Peter explains that he did not tell him in order to protect him, reminding Harry that a lot has happened since he was enclosed in that tank. Harry wants to give his new powers a try, and he places a pen as a target to hit. When he is ready, he aims at it, and the asset attacks the pen, cracking some of the glass behind it in the process. The next morning, Norman walks into the lab and finds one of the offices destroyed while Peter and Harry are sleeping on the two couches. Norman is very serious and asks Harry about Dr. Connors. Harry jokes with him, saying that he might have taken a day off, but Norman claims that Connors never takes a day off. Peter gives them some privacy, but he can't get any himself. He is soon called into another incident, and he gets caught up fighting against some cultists. Next, Spider-Man continues looking for Tombstone, and he soon finds his location. While he starts fighting against the hunters, Harry joins him in his new suit and offers to help. The two of them go against the bad guys and are able to overpower them. However, they keep storming in, and Harry has to figure out how to break Tombstone out of his cell. In the process, he makes a huge mess and hot lava starts pouring into the place. Harry manages to make his way into the cell, but now they have to break the cell's entrance from within. Spider-Man helps them, but the task proves difficult to achieve. While pushing the door, Harry remembers how he used to place his hand on the tank's glass and how the asset rolled up around them. In the same manner, the asset now puts a greater effort, and Harry is able to break the cage. The three of them run outside, and Spider-Man tells Harry to check if they were followed. Spider-Man tells Tombstone that he was lucky they saved him, because some of the others did not make it, while Tombstone adds that the hunters were waiting for their boss to come and deal with him. After Spider-Man asks him if he has a safe place where he can go, Tombstone proclaims that he will be ready to fight if those hunters come after him again. Peter and Harry bounce, and they now take some time to reflect on what they just did. Harry knows that he was messing everything, but Peter jokes that he was messing everything up in the best possible way. The two of them fist bump each other, but Harry's asset wraps around Peter's hand, and they have to pull each other apart. Once they do that, Harry's suit changes the design on his chest on its own. In the meantime, Miles pays his mother a visit to her workplace. Rio tells him that she just wanted to check up on him because it seems like he has a lot on his mind lately. Miles tries to convince her that he is fine, but a mother can't be fooled that easily. Since that's the case, Miles admits that there is a lot going on in his mind. There are a lot of things he has to take care of around the city. He has to write his admission application for college. Peter seems to be busy with other stuff, and worst of all, Lee is free. Miles asks his mother how she is able to deal with that because she seems way too calm. Rio replies that she is bothered by the fact of Martin Lee being free, but she also tries to focus on how to make the community better. Back at the lab, Peter receives a phone call from MJ, who tells him that she has good news and bad news for him. The bad news is that Dr. Connor's house is full of hunters, but the good news is she knows how to find him. While she is speaking to Peter, we see that she is actually hiding in the back of a van. The van is taken by the hunters, and MJ secretly rides with them. Upon arriving at their destination, MJ has to stand up for herself and starts sneaking around the place, taking out enemies in order to find out what has happened with Dr. Connors. After wandering around for long enough, MJ hears a phone ringing and picks it up. Hearing that it is Harry on the other end of the line, she tells him she is somewhere in New Jersey, but the phone's battery dies. Then, MJ sees the hunters bringing Connors in and locks him into a cage. After finding the keys, MJ enters his cage in order to free him, while Connors tells him that she should not be here. Right then, Kraven walks into the cage behind them with an injection containing a green fluid. MJ tries to attack him with a taser gun, but that does not work. After knocking her to the side, Kraven injects Connors with the fluid. At that point, Spider-Man and Harry appear, but they are too late. Kraven's hunters burn the place down while Kraven himself walks away. Connors is in a tough spot and asks Harry along with Spider-Man to look for an antidote. The two heroes start fighting against the bad guys, while MJ takes upon the task of taking Connors to the antidote. Even though they are able to find it, it is taken out of their hands. Soon, the antidote starts floating into the air as if an invisible being was holding it. Connors feels worse and he gradually transforms into the lizard. Spider-Man tries to grab the antidote, but something is holding it back. Then, a knife is driven into Peter's torso and the invisible force twists and breaks it, leaving the blade in Peter's body. That infuriates Harry, who now unleashes a huge attack on all the hunters. The invisible being is now heard talking, and we are able to recognize that it is none other than Kraven. MJ tries to help Peter get up and take him out of there. While she is dragging him along, Harry is fighting against an invisible Kraven. While they exchange blows, Harry sends Kraven flying into a huge statue, and it is knocked down. MJ manages to push Peter out of the way at the last minute, but she is almost trapped under it. Thankfully, she makes it out of there and manages to put Peter back on his feet. At some point, Peter can't walk any further and he collapses onto the ground. At the same time, Harry temporarily defeats Kraven, and MJ screams at him to go and help them out. Nonetheless, it is too late for Spider-Man, who now falls dead. Harry screams loudly as he becomes very emotional, but that very fact motivates his asset to move from Harry's body to Peter's body. From this fact, it is deduced that the asset is actually Venom, an extraterrestrial being that has ended up on Earth. The asset merges with Spider-Man, shifting his whole suit to black color, and is able to bring him back to life. Peter wakes up wondering what just happened, but there is not much time for reflection. Kraven's hunters attack them again, and Peter tells MJ to take Harry away while he deals with them. With a combination of new powers, Peter is able to easily defeat his opponents. Then, he meets with MJ and Harry back at the lab. Peter can't stop walking around because he is worried about Harry, who claims to be fine for the moment being. MJ is now informed that it was actually the suit who cured Harry, so his condition might worsen over the following days without the suit. Peter has no idea what to do, but makes an attempt to transfer the asset back to Harry. The asset moves out of his body, but only to remove the blade from his torso. Peter tries again, but it does not work. Harry suggests they need to find Dr. Connors because he is the only one who might be able to help them with the asset. However, Peter notes that Connors is just a lizard now, and he probably won't be in any condition to help them. MJ remembers that Kraven had a serum hanging around his neck. That was the serum he used on Connors. If they can find it, they can analyze it and try to come up with an antidote for Connors. MJ grabs the blade of Kraven's knife, and she will try to use it in order to track Kraven down. Soon, she gives Peter a possible location, and the latter proceeds to check it out. As it seems, there is a reception taking place, but Peter is not certain if Kraven is gonna be here. The asset transforms his suit into a tux, and Peter walks into the place pretending he is a waiter. Unfortunately, Kraven is nowhere to be found, and Peter only stumbles on a huge hunter and Kraven's personal bodyguard, which is a tiger. Although Peter puts the tiger to sleep, he is spotted by the guards and has to confront them before he escapes. Soon thereafter, Peter is ambushed by the huge hunter, but he is able to win the fight. Then he walks into a cathedral looking for Kraven. While he searches for him, a thin water stream runs down the cathedral's bell and creates a noise. That causes Peter to have blurry vision, but he does not know what causes it just yet. An invisible Kraven soon attacks Peter and pins him to the wall, but the asset uses its strength to knock Kraven back. Despite this, Kraven hits the bell and the noise annoys the asset. Kraven understands that, and he hits the bell hard. The noise really causes the asset to suffer, and Peter is in huge pain. The asset attacks the bell and pins it to the wall, ceasing the noise. In a quick move, Peter steals the serum from Kraven's neck and tells him that they will finish this at another point in time. When Spider-Man leaves, Kraven mentions that this is going to be his final hunt. While Peter flies away, we see a light beeping on the serum, which probably hints to us that Kraven has wired the serum with a tracking device, and that is why it was so easy for Peter to steal the serum. When Peter gets back to the lab, he finds Harry waiting for him and ready to start analyzing the serum. Indeed, Harry is quick to jump into action, but unfortunately, the antidote is unstable, so he is not sure if it is going to work. Peter suggests that the antidote would be more stable if they were to fuse some electrons into it, but to do that, they would need a particle accelerator. The thing is, they have a particle accelerator. Harry gets the machine started, but it stops functioning due to a change of pressure. Since Peter has the Venom suit, he dares to enter the accelerator and fix the problem. When they are ready to start preparing the antidote, the lab is attacked by the hunters. This attack is of a massive scale, and Peter has to keep the bad guys back while Harry works on completing the antidote. The lab is completely destroyed, but thankfully, Harry has managed to complete the creation of the antidote. Peter takes him outside, while Norman finally arrives at the scene with his military-grade security. Harry is disappointed because the lab is destroyed, but Peter tells him that they can rebuild it. Their dream is not dead yet. For now, they have to focus on making Harry healthy again. If they can achieve that, they can restore everything else to the way it was. Peter asks Harry to trust him and grabs the serum in order to go out looking for the lizard. The next morning, Peter arrives at the doctor's house, but it would be too easy if he was home. Peter finds several lizard nail marks, but he also uncovers a secret compartment inside the house by pure luck. As it appears, Connors has built a mini lab inside his house, including a panic room inside the lab. Peter is not able to find anything useful, but he reviews the camera footage and notices that the lizard came by the lab yesterday after being injected with the serum. However, the lizard's condition was unstable, and not even the panic room was enough to keep him inside. Peter gets out of the house, but he is apprehended by some hunters. After defeating them, he approaches one of their cars to see what the other hunters are saying over the radio. As it appears, they are also after the lizard, who is probably somewhere near the river. Peter knows that he is not going to be able to reach Connors in time, so he calls Miles and asks for his help. Miles spots the hunters and follows after them. After beating some of them up, he hacks into one of their drones so it can be commanded by his mate Genki online. He also finds out that the lizard has changed its skin, which means that Connors is either nearby or he was here. Peter joins Miles, and now all parties are searching for the lizard. Eventually, they're able to find him in the river, but a huge battle starts out as both the hunters and the Spidermen are after him. On the other hand, the lizard is quite strong now and also attacks both parties. In the end, the lizard escapes, but Miles has some good news for Peter, since he has put a tracking device on Connors. Peter grabs the tracker out of his hands and says that he will deal with the lizard alone. When Peter leaves, Genki asks if he always behaves like that. Miles is quite worried because, as he says, Peter never behaves like that. Soon, Peter enters the sewers and calls Harry to tell him that he is close to finding Connors. Harry seems really disappointed and his condition has worsened. Peter discovers yet another lab and a strange mineral in it. Once he approaches that mineral, the asset tries to reach for it. Peter hears a noise and walks away from the mineral, so the asset can't get in touch with it. Then, Peter is attacked by the giant lizard, and the two of them engage in a big fight. Spider-Man is able to pin the lizard down with lots of help from the asset, and is about to inject Connors with the serum. However, the lizard screams, and that causes pain in Spider-Man's suit. The lizard finds an opportunity to attack Peter and escape. Peter grabs the serum and goes after the lizard. The city turns into a mess once more as the hunters join the party and go after the lizard. In the midst of the fight, Peter is able to inject the shot into the lizard's back, but the needle can't reach below Connors' skin. On top of that, the needle is stuck on the lizard's back, and now Peter has to retrieve it and find another way to use it. Spider-Man and the lizard end up standing on the roofs of two separate buildings, but they are interrupted by Kraven, who shoots the lizard off the building. Spider-Man tries to get to the lizard while they are flying, but he is not fast enough, so the two of them end up crashing hard on the ground. When they wake up, they discover that they are under the ground. They engage in one more fight, and this time Peter is ready to finish the job. After he defeats the lizard, he holds his mouth open and injects the serum in it. Both of them are knocked into the water, where the lizard transforms back into Dr. Connors. After an unconscious Connors is saved by Spider-Man, he wakes up and is surprised to see him wearing the black suit. Connors takes Spider-Man into the lab and presents him with the mineral, which is obviously a rock from another planet. When he brings it close to the asset, the rock causes pain to it. The asset makes an attempt to grab the rock, and that initiates a flashback in Peter's mind, where he sees how the asset was found in the past by Norman and Dr. Connors. Back then, Connors had approached the asset in order to have a closer look, but it wrapped around his hand and refused to let go, to the point where the security had to shoot his hand off. Back in the present day, Connors explains that the mineral was found when a meteorite crashed into Earth, and that is where they also found the asset. He proceeds to outline how the asset bonds with its host at a subcellular level, but apart from that, there are many things that remain unclear. Connors wonders how Peter bonded with the alien and asks him why Harry gave it to him. Spider-Man reveals that Harry did not exactly give it to him, but rather the alien transferred itself to him when he was hurt. Connors assumes that the host picked Spider-Man on its own, which also makes him hypothesize that the alien is even more dangerous than he thought. Connors grabs his phone while saying that he needs to call Norman in order to destroy the alien, but Spider-Man knocks the phone out of his hands. Spider-Man can't understand why Connors would like to destroy them, indicating that the alien also affects Peter's mind. Peter claims that the alien has made him a better Spider-Man and leaves the lab after knocking Connors on the ground. As soon as he gets outside, a hunter reports on the radio that they have a visual on the target. A few minutes later, Peter has made it back home and jumps onto his bed. MJ tries telling him about a story that she will publish, but Peter is so tired that he can't stay awake for much longer. MJ tells him that she is still wearing the suit, but Peter does not seem to care about that. MJ begins walking out of the room, but her attention is drawn back to Peter when she sees an alien pulling the blanket for them. Then, she hears some weird noises from outside and notices that the hunters are killing the lights. She turns around to warn Peter, but he is already out of bed. MJ takes a couple of hunters out and then makes her way out of the house. She gradually realizes that Peter has lost himself because he never treats his enemies so ruthlessly. MJ shoots Miles a message asking for his help. Spider-Man seems to be in a carnage, and MJ follows him until they reach the docks. Miles appears as well, and the bad guys jump him. MJ arrives at the location on a motorcycle and asks Miles to seal Peter and herself in the tunnel because she wants to speak to him. Miles doubts this is a good idea, but MJ is confident that she can appeal to Peter's emotions. Miles kicks Peter into the tunnel and then waits for MJ to pass through before he seals the entrance. MJ looks for Peter, but he is out of control and attacks her. MJ is knocked down, but she is also lucky. While she falls, the taser gun leaves her hands and is accidentally activated. It hits 2 metal tubes and causes a large amount of noise, which leads the alien to pass out. Meanwhile, outside, Miles has to deal with lots of bad guys. The fight causes a crane machinery to crumble, and Miles has to help a worker. When he saves the worker and holds him in his hands, the worker gives him an injection, causing Miles to pass out. Kraven arrives as well and orders his hunters to blow the entrance of the tunnel. Inside the tunnel, MJ tases Peter in order to wake him up. Peter gradually wakes up, but he tells MJ to run. The alien takes over control and starts hunting MJ down. MJ is unable to find a place to hide until the alien gives up and stops looking for her. Thankfully, she also finds an exit and is able to evade Kraven. Just outside the tunnel, 2 hunters come back and report to Kraven that Spider-Man is not in the tunnel. Despite this minor disappointment, Kraven believes that Spider-Man will come to him sooner or later because he now has Miles. The next morning, Spider-Man wakes up on a bench and seems to have had a good sleep. When he checks on his phone, he realizes that he has missed many messages and calls. He suits up and flies around the city until he receives a notification on his phone that MJ has published a new article in her newspaper. However, Peter does not like that article because it talks about how recklessly Spider-Man has behaved lately. Soon, Peter walks in on Harry and asks him how he feels, which is an iconic question considering the way he looks. MJ walks into the room as well, and Peter asks her about the article. MJ defends herself, saying that she wanted to talk to him about it the previous night. She implies that she was kind of forced by her boss to write it in that style, but she also believes that Spider-Man had started behaving strangely even before the incident last night. The problem is, Peter does not remember anything from last night. He can only recall going to sleep. MJ expresses that the alien is taking control over him and is destroying him. But Peter replies that he would be dead if it was not for the alien. It seems to Peter that everyone is against him, so he makes sure to clarify that he is the hero here before he leaves the office. In the hallway, Peter hears Norman screaming and he decides to check up on him. Peter finds him working on his computer, but Norman is quite desperate because he can't seem to find a solution for his son's sickness. Peter tries to console him, saying that Harry is going to be fine, but Norman already knows that is not true. Norman is a bit emotional and gives Peter a hug, thanking him for being a friend to his son. While they discuss, Harry appears behind the wall and sees them. Norman tells Peter that seeing him grow up with Harry has made him feel like Peter is a second son to him. Furthermore, he tells Peter that he is proud of the man he has become. Harry listens to all of that and leaves before he is spotted. Eventually, Peter says he has to go and leaves the office, where the asset merged with Harry, but he can't do anything more than stare at it. Harry returns to his office and MJ immediately picks the tension up. Harry is angry, and he becomes even angrier when he sees Peter flying around with his webs. He throws his walking aid at the window and cracks a hole on the glass. MJ tries to speak to him, but Harry is in no mood to talk. MJ gives it yet another try, but Harry yells at her and tells her to leave. After leaving Harry's office, Peter goes to see Rio, who is worried about Miles. The two of them have a short chat since Peter is not in the best mood, being subtly controlled by the asset. Rio suggests that she could call the hospitals and see if Miles is in any of them, but Peter speaks roughly and tells her that he is going to find Miles. In the meantime, Miles wakes up in a cage, but he manages to escape it. He wanders around the location trying to find an exit, but he only stumbles on more and more opponents. After beating many of them up, he enters a room where several hunters have been waiting for him. Miles gets ready to fight, but the hunters move to the side, allowing Miles to come through. A gate opens for the young Spider-Man, and he now enters Kraven's arena, where he sees Mr. Negative waiting for him. Kraven announces that the two of them are going to fight to the death. Miles takes a look around, trying to find a way out, but Lee tells him there is no way out, since he has already tried everything. Kraven clarifies for them that their only choice is to fight each other, or else they will both die. Miles starts fighting against Mr. Negative and asks him how many people he has killed in this arena. Mr. Negative replies that he had no other choice and keeps fighting against Miles. Spider-Man serves him a good beating, but Mr. Negative regroups and unleashes more of his power. Miles beats him again, but now Lee tries another trick. He grabs Miles and brings him near his body, managing to transfer him into his negative world. There, Miles has to fight a giant beast, while he also experiences several illusions. The first one is them seeing Peter, who tells him that he tried to train Miles to be a good Spider-Man, but he will always be aware of the fact that he is second after Peter. After defeating some of Negative's minions, Miles sees the figure of his father, who asks him what happened to the boy he raised, blaming Miles for being a failure. Eventually, Miles makes amends with himself and his past, and he is able to force Mr. Negative to manifest. Miles brings him close and unleashes a powerful electrical attack, destroying this negative world. Back in the arena, Mr. Negative loses all his powers and begs Miles to finish him. Miles pretends he is about to hit him hard, but tells him to find Spider-Man once he is out. He manages to send Lee to the roof, but Kraven tells his men to not let them escape. While the hunters approach, Miles unleashes yet another huge attack and eliminates them. However, he is tired now and collapses on the ground, while Kraven approaches him with a grin on his face. Lee manages to make it to the city and is able to meet with Peter. He informs him about Kraven's location and says they have to hurry up. Spider-Man tells him that he's done enough and that he's going to handle it on his own. Before Peter leaves, Lee tells him that he should be proud of Miles and that the young boy reminds him of the first Spider-Man. Peter finds Kraven's location soon and beats up some of his hunters. After interrogating one of them, he enters another huge room, but he is trapped in a cage. Kraven says the cage is unbreakable, but then again, he believes that anything can be broken. Peter is having a hard time destroying the cage, and Kraven comments that he is still holding back. To offer him some extra motivation, he shows him Miles, being in a poor condition. So, Peter now unleashes all of his anger and destroys the cage. After everything that has happened, it is time for them to battle each other. Peter wins the first round, but Kraven starts playing dirty and uses a big bell to cause pain to the alien. Despite this trick, Spider-Man is able to fight back and give Kraven a good fight. Kraven is overpowered, but lashes back onto Spider-Man and tries to break his skull while blaming him that he is still holding back. That anger unleashes the asset, which now takes control and is about to choke Kraven. Right then, Miles gets involved and actually saves Kraven because he knows Peter is not a killer. But then Peter turns against Miles, and the two of them fight each other. Eventually, Miles has to use the bell as well, and he causes excruciating pain on the asset, while also speaking to Peter, trying to make him conscious and bring him back in control. Lastly, Peter is able to come back to his senses and he pulls the asset out of his body. The asset tries to merge with him again, but Miles imprisons the alien in a lab tube. When they are safe, Peter apologizes to Miles for everything that has happened lately, but things are cool between them. Peter intends to see Dr. Connors, hoping that he will be able to kill the alien, but Miles asks him about Harry, wondering if he needs the asset or not. Peter tells Miles that Norman is working on another cure, but in reality, he does not want the asset anywhere near Harry because he only knows it'll gradually take control of him. Finally, the two of them split ways for now, and Miles has to go back to his mother and offer her some relief. Connors tells Spider-Man to bring the asset to the Oscorp tower, but when Peter gets there, he finds Harry waiting for him. Harry is in a bad condition and demands to get the asset, but Peter strongly advises him against that because they have already witnessed what the asset can do to a human being. Harry starts attacking Peter, and when the two of them get close, the asset breaks the tube and pushes Peter back. Now, the asset merges with Harry, who is more than willing to take it back. The asset takes advantage of Harry's unstable mental situation, and the two of them officially become Venom. Norman calls his security and orders them to attack Venom with non-lethal weapons in order to get the asset out of him. However, there is little his security can do, and Venom escapes the facility. But then, Kraven attacks him with an explosive spear, sending Venom flying from the roof to the ground. When Kraven himself lands, he remarks that the asset has finally revealed its true power. Kraven has finally found the equal opponent he has been searching for, and he is now defeated. Venom stands victorious over him, and Kraven thanks him for giving him an honorable death. Venom picks him up by his head and eats his brains. Next, Harry visits the cemetery to talk to his mother's grave. She speaks some reassuring words to him, but it is really Venom who's speaking in Harry's mind, telling him that they are going to cure everyone while the asset expands its reach around the city. The next morning, Spider-Man emerges from the ruins and goes around the city to find Harry. At some point, he believes he sees Venom and approaches. However, this is just a random woman who is struggling not to be taken over by the asset. Despite her efforts, she is defeated, and the asset takes over, transforming her into a version of Venom. She attacks Peter, but that is not all. Spider-Man realizes that the asset is trying to do the same to everyone. Thankfully, Peter is able to defeat them and beats the asset out of those people. Peter calls Miles for help, and the two of them create a sound-blasting device to help them defeat the asset more easily and remove it from the people. Venom has caused a mess around the city, and the two Spider-Men have to rush underground to save some people from a wrecked train, including Rio and Genki. Later, Peter gives MJ a call in order to catch up, but they are soon interrupted by Harry, who knocks on her door. Peter runs to her house and finds them sitting down, while Harry mumbles about his dreams coming true. Everyone knows that Harry is not himself, and when they try to tell him that he needs to get rid of the asset, that only makes Harry angry, and he now transforms into Venom once more. Venom transfers a portion of the asset to MJ and transfers her into a creature called Scream. Peter has to fight against her all around the neighborhood, and he beats her multiple times. Eventually, Peter loosens his attack and allows MJ to get a hold of him. He reminds her that she is a person that always strives for the truth, and that really resonates with her. MJ now causes some noise in order to fight the asset, and she is able to take it off. She and Peter take some brief seconds to reunite, but the latter has to go since Miles needs him. Peter flies to the city hall, where he realizes that Venom is trying to turn the whole city into a giant nest of symbiotes. While the two Spider-Men are caught up in a battle, Peter loses himself and is covered in black. Mr. Negative appears to help Miles since he is alone, but they assume that there is still a piece of symbiote in Peter's subconscious, causing his current condition. To resolve this situation, they decide to dive deep into Peter's subconscious mind and figure out what Peter's deepest source of pain is. Lee is able to take Miles in, and after dealing with lots of obstacles and enemies set by Peter's subconscious mind, they find his deepest source of pain, which is losing his Aunt May. Miles touches Peter on the shoulder, And at that moment, everyone is taken back to the real world. Soon, Peter wakes up and now his suit changes to a white color, which is basically an anti-venom suit. While fighting off some enemies, Peter asks Miles about it, and the latter assumes it is an effect of what happened in his subconscious, probably because Lee had to drain the symbiote. After this short battle, the two Spider-Men have a talk with Lee, who now appears to be a changed man. He mentions that he spent his whole life consumed by vengeance, but he will try to set things right the way Miles does. When Lee leaves, Peter comments that Miles reformed his greatest enemy, something that he has never been able to do. Maybe one day he can retire, and Miles will be the only one needed to protect the city. Despite his kind words, Miles comments that there's still lots of way till they get there. Peter knows that Venom is after the meteorite pieces, so he rushes to Connor's lab. However, he finds Venom already there. Norman asks Venom to give his son back, but Venom replies that they are his son, before throwing Norman away like a toy. Spider-Man saves Norman, but can't stop Venom from getting the two alien rocks and merging them together. Venom escapes, while Peter approaches Connors and asks him how they can save Harry. Connors is pretty clear on the fact that Harry can't be saved now, and the only thing they can do is to kill the asset. But in order to kill the symbiote, they need to kill the host, which, in this case, is Harry. Next, Peter meets with Miles, who has created a new fancy suit for himself. Peter is worried about losing Harry, and Miles believes that this is the right time to tell him that he saw Aunt May when he was in Peter's head. He tells Peter that her death was not his fault, and that if May and his father were here, they would tell him to stop thinking about them. Peter believes that Miles is very mature and thinks it is fair for him to call their next move. Miles suggests they split up to cover more ground, and the two of them go their separate ways. Soon, Peter finds a hive and decides to take a look, but Venom appears behind him and pins him down. He shows Peter a vision and says that they can have the power to heal everyone, but they want Peter on their side. In the vision, Peter sees everyone transforming into Venom-like creatures. Miles interrupts them and uses his electrical powers to get Venom off Peter. Since they are outnumbered, the Spider-Men decide to flee. Once they are safe, Peter calls everyone for a meeting in May's house because he believes he knows where the meteorite is. During their meeting, the team concludes that the meteorite is below the biggest park in Manhattan. Most likely, Venom is trying to use it in order to infect the water system with it and reach more people. They know that Venom will be guarding it, but Peter believes they can lure Venom away from the rock. Harry is still Harry, and his dream was to cure the world alongside his childhood friend, Peter. Then, Miles can distract the symbiotes while MJ can look for the rock and steal it. The team takes action immediately, and Peter lures Venom out of his cave. Venom tells him that Peter can finally receive the gift they have, but the latter pushes Venom back and tells him that he has to catch him first. While the two of them fly away, Miles attacks the symbiotes guarding the cave and lures them on himself. Then, MJ enters the cave and it's her turn to make a play. MJ steals the meteorite and Miles helps her to get a motorcycle. While these two flee the scene, Venom catches up to Spider-Man and the two of them land in their old high school. Venom defeats Spider-Man and is about to merge him with the asset, but he understands that the meteorite has been stolen and flies away with Peter. Soon, MJ and Miles walk into Oscorp, looking for the particle accelerator, hoping that it will be able to destroy the meteorite. Right then, Venom arrives as well and throws Peter away like he is nothing. Miles momentarily traps Venom, while MJ puts the rock into the accelerator. But Venom recovers and battles against Miles. He defeats Miles and pins him down moments before neutralizing MJ and stealing the rock back. Eventually, Venom tries to fly away with the meteorite, but the Spider-Men hunt after him and a huge battle ensues while they are all flying. In the midst of the battle, Miles grabs the meteorite and returns it to the lab while Peter fights with Venom. Miles throws the meteorite into the accelerator again and uses his suit to power the machine. At the same time, Peter uses his own suit to damage the asset. Harry's face is revealed for a few moments, but he tells Peter that he can't be saved, prompting to kill him before they kill Peter and everyone he loves. The asset takes over again, and Venom bursts back into the lab trying to steal the meteorite. And MJ shoots Venom with her sonic gun. Peter joins the party and helps his friends as all the pieces seem to be falling in place. MJ presses the button to get the accelerator started, and Harry tells Peter that now is the time. Peter uses his suit to exterminate the asset, while the accelerator does its job and destroys the alien rock. Harry lays dead for a few moments, but Miles uses his suit to give him a couple of electrical shocks and is able to revive him. Harry is in a bad condition and needs to be taken to the hospital. When Norman arrives and sees his son like that, he blames everything on the Spiderman. A few days later, a doctor tells Norman that there is some brain activity, but Harry's chances of waking up are slim. When he is left alone, Norman makes a phone call and orders somebody to prepare the G serum. In Peter's house, he tells Miles that he needs some time off, and the latter allows him to take as much time as he needs, saying that he has the city under control. Elsewhere, Norman visits Dr. Octavius and asks him if he knows who the Spider-Men are, indicating that he wants to get revenge for Harry's condition. Finally, Miles and his girlfriend are chilling in his house, waiting to have dinner with Rio and her date. When the time comes, they meet Rio's date and his daughter, whose face we do not see.